at Ueno Park in Tokyo, and the park is extremely significant because it has Western emblematic culture that Japan was trying to transition during the Meiji period. So you would see a lot of cultural facilities in Ueno Park. You would see a lot of museums. You would see a lot of academies being created in this major park. And until today, the park still stands. While the Meiji period has long gone, the park stands at attracting over 10 million visitors a year, making this the most busiest public park in Japan. And where we are right now, we are at the Tokyo Metropolitan Museum of Art. And this is an extremely interesting museum because this was the first publicly available museum made to the public of Japan. It was first created in 1907, and it was endowed by the a very rich person at that time, and until today it's being supported by a prefectorial government, not the federal government. So that means that the city of Tokyo is actually upkeeping the museum. And so the question now is, what is Ueno Park today, where this Metropolitan Museum stands? Ueno Park, of course, started becoming a historical period or a feature in the 1600s or the 17th century, when it belonged to the shogunate of that time. Over the years, over the centuries, it was transferred, the property of Ueno Park and Ueno Hill for that matter, back and forth until around 1868 during the Battle of Ueno, where there were two major forces, and one wanted to restore the emperor leadership, and the other one wants to maintain status quo and keep this place as a shogunate. And because of that battle, the property was transferred yet again. Now at that time it was transferred to the Tokyo prefecture. It was just created during that time. So from then on, in the late 19th century until today, Ueno Park and the facilities that are on this park belongs to the Tokyo prefecture, including this very museum that we are at. So there's a lot of history in this. I urge you guys to look it up and learn more about the rich cultural history. Today, Ueno Park is very famous for the Spring Blossom Festival. This is where they have the cherry blossom during the spring period. Of course, I'm currently in autumn, heading towards winter, so we wouldn't be enjoying the lovely cherry blossoms, but a lot of visitors, when they come to Tokyo, they would come here specifically to enjoy the cherry blossom festival. But again, there's a lot of cultural festivities, so Tokyo is not just about the fancy lights and billboards. There's also a rich cultural element here. Now, one thing I want to highlight, right, is that people in Tokyo, they live in very small, confined spaces, most of them, and they would take the time to leave their houses to actually enjoy public spaces. That's why you have a lot of the 24-hour cafe. You would have a lot of public places where people can meet, because sometimes it's not just conducive to meet friends and family at home, so they meet at public places, and Ueno Park is one of the best places to meet their friends, and that's why you see a lot of people coming out on weekends just to enjoy the public spaces. So this is something that we normally see in high density cities, and it doesn't have to be a rich city or a poor city, because as long as you live in a highly densely populated city, you would have this kind of connotation where your house is small and you would enjoy public spaces a lot more. So Singapore is one of them, Bangladesh is another one, where because of the confined spaces, people tend to meet in public areas rather than meeting at home. So Tokyo is no different from that. And another feature about Ueno Park is that it is a hub for the homeless, and this is something that not many people like to talk about, at least people in Japan. It is considered an endemic, the homelessness in Japan, but in Tokyo There are a lot of homeless people, and they tend to stay in Ueno Park, and it is illegal to squat in Ueno Park. So when you see all these homeless camps, they set up with the blue tarp and tarpaulin, and they make this makeshift shelter. Every now and then the police would come down and destroy those kind of tents or camps, but they always reappear. So there are times where homeless people come to Ueno Park and seek shelter here and squat at the park, and that has irked a lot of parties. But because of the concept of a very high income nation, you would see a lot of homelessness also there. So that is a feature that Ueno Park that not many people like. So anyway, that's much of the reporting that I can bring from Ueno Park here in Tokyo, Japan. As you can see, that was the Social Education Practice Research Center. It's one of the many centers that the Japanese government has in terms of trying to cultivate and curate the necessary teachings that the young'uns in this country can receive. Behind this Social Education Research Center is what they call the Institute for Children's Literature. Again, another institute or establishment where they curate what the children of this country can learn. Now this is important. Why? Because there are a lot of allegations from a lot of governments, particularly those in Korea and China in specifics, that say that the Japanese are withholding the necessary details of the education in children's textbooks pertaining to the atrocities that the Japanese government committed during World War II. Now these allegations, if you can see from the textbooks that the children has, indeed are not telling the full story of what truly happened and what truly transpired during World War II. So the question now is, why is the Japanese government curating and tailoring the subjects or the syllabus of what the children gets at school, and of course other fictional books, on the kind of things that did not happen during World War II? Why is the Japanese government see that there is a need for them to curate and create a story where the Japanese atrocities during World War II were not that awful? I think the Japanese government could learn a lot from the German government. I just got back from Munich, and my wife went to the Dachau Memorial Site in Germany, near Munich. In Dachau, they were not at all shying away from the history of the German government. They did not shy away from the atrocities that the Nazi party did during World War II. The Germans actually teach every single thing that the Nazis did during World War II to the school children. I think this is important. I think it's very important and essential for the younger generations to learn what happened during atrocities like World War II. Only then can we learn to not repeat the same mistakes that the previous generations have done. When you go to Japan, you have to go to the Fuji Mountains as well as the Fuji Range. I am here at Hakone Hot Spring. Behind me, as you can see, those are sulfuric mountains, it's sulfuric ash and smoke. The smell of sulfur is actually quite intense. On the mountain itself, you can actually see the sulfur outright. Now they actually mine this sulfur, and with this they actually distribute it down to the industries down in Tokyo, which is about 2 to 3 hours away by car or truck. And of course the industry here, they also mine the hot spring itself, meaning that the energy that they want to get from the hot spring is also mined. Currently I am at Owakudani range, and this is where it's more of a touristy kind of spot where there's an observatory here. You can take some pictures. There's also a lot of rest houses that you can actually eat out. It's actually a fantastic place to be in. Currently the weather is about 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. With wind chill factor, it can be pushed down even further by 10 degrees. So we do expect sub-zero temperature in terms of the perception of it because of the wind chill factor. Now, I did also go to Mt Fuji itself at the 5th station, which is just below the hillside. Mt Fuji is of course 3,776 meters. And you can actually hike to the summit of Mt Fuji from the 5th station. The visuals that I have here are quite fantastic for you to actually observe. One thing interesting is that Mt Fuji, particularly the 5th station, is normally covered with mist and cloud and snow. But the day that I went, interestingly enough, and very rare at that, is that Mt Fuji was not covered in anything of that sort. So it was actually a clear blue day, and with that I was able to capture some of the more fantastic shots with my colleague and my cameraman. And with this, I bid you farewell. There are also other in terms of clips that I can show you along the way, but for now, I'm Ibrahim Sani signing off.